What if the most honest war movies were not the famous ones everyone quotes, but the forgotten films veterans quietly nod at? The movies that feel wrong, uncomfortable, and painfully close to memory. This list is not about spectacle or hero speeches, it is about realism veterans respect. The confusion, the fear, the exhaustion, and the moral damage that never leaves. These are war films that feel lived and not staged. Number 10. Casualties of War. 1989. Veterans often describe this film as difficult to watch not because of violence, but because of truth. Casualties of War strips away battlefield mythology and focuses on the moral collapse that can happen inside small units under pressure. The jungle is not a backdrop. It is a trap that erodes discipline, empathy, and identity. The film follows a young soldier trapped between loyalty to his squad and his conscience. What veterans respect is how slowly the breakdown happens. No one wakes up evil. Fatigue, fear, resentment, and isolation do the work. The patrol sequences feel aimless by design. Soldiers move without clear objectives, mirroring how many Vietnam missions felt in reality. The sound design matters here. Jungle noise never stops. Silence never comforts. Veterans often point out how accurate the emotional fatigue feels. There are no victories, only survival and regret. The chain of command feels distant, unreliable, and abstract, which reflects many real Vietnam-era accounts. This is not an easy film. It refuses to reassure the audience. That refusal is exactly why veterans respect it. War here is not about bravery. It is about what happens when no good options remain and someone still has to choose. Number 9. Too Late, the Hero. 1970. Veterans often mention this film when discussing leadership failure. Too Late, the Hero presents war as confusion layered on top of bad decisions. Orders change, missions lose meaning. Authority becomes a liability rather than protection. Set during a doomed island operation, the film follows soldiers who realize too late that competence and courage cannot fix flawed planning. What veterans respect is how little control the characters have. Even skilled fighters are trapped by timing, politics, and misinformation. Combat scenes avoid glory. Jungle firefights are short, chaotic, and disorienting. Characters are lost not just physically but mentally. The enemy is present but never theatrical. Death comes suddenly without music or build-up. Leadership is portrayed as fragile. Rank does not equal wisdom. Veterans often say this reflects reality more than heroic command portrayals. Respect is earned situationally, not automatically. The film understands a painful truth. War punishes initiative as often as it rewards it. Sometimes doing everything right still ends badly. That honesty is why veterans remember this film even when the public forgets it. Number 8. Play Dirty. 1969. This film earns veteran respect for its cynicism. Play Dirty shows covert warfare as morally hollow and strategically disposable. Commandos are treated as tools, not heroes. Missions exist to satisfy politics rather than military necessity. Veterans recognize the emotional distance between planners and fighters. Orders come from clean rooms. Consequences happen in dirt and blood. The soldiers know they are expendable and behave accordingly. Action scenes avoid celebration. Explosions feel pointless. Death rarely changes outcomes. Survival feels accidental rather than earned. Veterans often note how accurate this emotional tone feels, especially in special operations where deniability matters more than victory. The characters cope through bitterness, sarcasm, and detachment. These behaviors are not exaggerated. They are survival mechanisms. The film respects that without romanticizing it. Play Dirty suggests that some missions are designed to fail quietly. Veterans who served in unconventional warfare often recognize that uncomfortable truth immediately. Number 7. The Big Red One. 1980. Veterans frequently point to this film as one of the most emotionally accurate portrayals of infantry life ever put on screen. That respect comes from who made it. Samuel Fuller was a frontline soldier, and his memories shape every frame. The Big Red One does not build toward heroic moments. It drifts through war the same way soldiers experience it, one stretch at a time without meaning until survival becomes routine. What stands out to veterans is the emotional flatness. Characters do not scream when men die. They barely react. Death is processed quickly because there is no time to grieve. This numbness is not cold filmmaking. It is psychological truth. Soldiers cannot function if every loss is treated as a tragedy. The film avoids spectacle. Battles are brief, violent, and confusing. They begin suddenly and end without closure. Veterans often note that combat rarely feels cinematic. It interrupts boredom rather than defining the day. The Big Red One captures that rhythm perfectly. Leadership here is quiet and pragmatic. Orders are given without speeches. Courage is shown through endurance rather than bravado. The enemy is dangerous but not demonized. They exist because war exists. Veterans respect this film because it does not explain war. It simply shows what it feels like to live inside it for too long. Number 6. The Steel Helmet. 1951. Made while the Korean War was still being fought, this film carries a raw immediacy that veterans immediately recognize. There is no historical distance, no softening of ideology. Characters argue openly about race politics and loyalty because soldiers actually did. The war had not yet been sanitized. Veterans often praise the way fear permeates every scene. Defensive positions feel temporary and unsafe. Silence is threatening. The enemy is unseen but close. That constant tension mirrors the psychological strain of holding ground without knowing what is coming next. The squad is mismatched and uneasy. There is no brotherhood fantasy here. Cooperation is necessary, not emotional. Leadership is practical, sometimes flawed, and occasionally wrong. Veterans recognize this dynamic instantly. Rank does not guarantee wisdom under fire. Combat is quick and unspectacular. The film understands that most fighting is over before adrenaline has time to turn into heroism. What remains afterward is exhaustion and doubt. This film earns veteran respect because it refuses to reassure. It presents war as confusion layered on top of fear and moral disagreement. That honesty was rare then and remains rare now. Number 5. The Beast. 1988. Veterans of armored warfare frequently single out this film for its psychological realism. The Beast places its crew inside a tank that becomes both weapon and prison. Claustrophobia defines every decision. Visibility is limited. Information is incomplete. Fear builds slowly and never releases. What veterans respect most is how the film portrays isolation. The crew is cut off from command support and moral clarity. Orders feel distant and irrelevant. Survival becomes the only objective. This mirrors real armored engagements where communication failures and terrain confusion dominate. The enemy is relentless but not theatrical. Threats appear without warning. Engagements are chaotic and brief. Damage accumulates mentally before it does physically. Veterans often point out how accurately the film captures the sense of being hunted rather than fighting. Moral erosion is central. Small compromises lead to larger ones. Violence becomes procedural. The film never justifies these actions. It simply shows how pressure reshapes behavior. The Beast earns its place here because it understands a truth veterans know well. Machines do not make war impersonal. They trap people inside it longer. Number 4. Cross of Iron. 1977. Veterans who respect this film often say the same thing. It feels angry in the right way. Cross of Iron does not rage at war from a distance. It simmers from inside the foxholes where resentment, boredom, fear, and bitterness mix together until discipline barely holds. Set on the Eastern Front, it portrays combat as grinding attrition rather than strategy or glory. What veterans respond to most is the portrayal of enlisted soldiers versus command ambition. The frontline troops are exhausted, cynical, and emotionally hollowed out. They are not motivated by ideology. They are motivated by staying alive for another hour. Officers above them chase medal status and abstract victories that mean nothing to the men actually dying. Combat scenes are chaotic and cruel. Artillery comes without warning. Attacks fail suddenly. Ground is taken and lost for reasons no one fully understands. Veterans often point out how accurate this confusion feels, especially in large-scale ground combat where individual actions rarely matter. The film also captures emotional detachment with brutal honesty. Soldiers joke about death because they have to. Compassion is rationed. Grief is compressed and swallowed. This is not because they lack humanity, but because humanity becomes a liability in prolonged combat. Cross of Iron refuses moral clarity. No side is clean, no victory feels earned. War here is a machine that consumes everyone regardless of ideology. Veterans respect this film because it mirrors the internal war many soldiers fight long after the shooting stops. Number 3. The Ninth Company. 2005. Veterans often describe this film as painfully familiar even across national lines. The Ninth Company follows young soldiers thrown into a war they barely understand, trained quickly and sent into terrain that punishes every mistake. What earns veteran respect is how accurately the film captures disillusionment. Training sequences feel rushed and incomplete by design. Soldiers arrive at the front confident and curious. That confidence dissolves fast. The mountains dominate every scene. Distance, visibility, and communication all work against the soldiers. Veterans frequently note how terrain becomes an enemy more dangerous than opposing forces. Combat is sudden, disorganized, and relentless. Engagements lack clear objectives. Ammunition runs low. Support arrives late or not at all. Orders feel detached from reality. These frustrations echo countless real accounts from veterans of Afghanistan across multiple armies. The film excels at portraying emotional erosion. Humor becomes darker. Bonds tighten under fire but fray under exhaustion. Leadership struggles to maintain authority while dealing with the same fear as everyone else. Veterans often say this equality of fear feels true. Rank does not protect anyone. The final act is devastating not because of spectacle, but because of inevitability. Losses feel avoidable and pointless, which is often how real battles are remembered. The Ninth Company earns veteran respect because it shows how wars chew through youth and optimism long before they end. Number 2. A Midnight Clear. 1992. Veterans often describe this film as emotionally accurate rather than tactically focused. A Midnight Clear captures the quiet tension of late war patrols when exhaustion replaces hatred and survival outweighs ideology. Set during the final winter of World War II, it portrays soldiers who are tired of fighting but trapped by obligation. What veterans respect is the atmosphere. Cold dominates everything. Movement is slow, deliberate, and painful. Silence is constant and threatening. The enemy feels close even when unseen. Veterans often say this is exactly how winter warfare feels. The environment becomes the primary adversary. The film excels in portraying young soldiers confronting moral ambiguity. They are not eager to kill, they are eager to go home. Small decisions carry enormous weight. A single misunderstanding can trigger irreversible consequences. Veterans recognize this tension immediately. Combat scenes are brief and devastating. Violence erupts suddenly and ends just as fast, leaving confusion rather than triumph. The film avoids heroics entirely. Death feels accidental rather than deserved. What lingers is regret. Veterans often speak of moments where things could have gone differently if timing or communication had changed slightly. A Midnight Clear is built entirely around that fragile uncertainty. This film earns its ranking because it understands that realism is not only about gunfire, it is about fear, hesitation, empathy, and the terrible cost of misjudgment when everyone involved is already broken. These films are not easy watches, and they were never meant to be. They matter because they respect lived experience over spectacle. If you want war stories that feel real, unsettling, and honest, these are essential viewing. Subscribe for more documentaries that explore cinema through truth, memory, and impact.